Morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Lisa Bedrogi with the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance, and I want to say I really tried to get a couple of winery representatives here this morning, practitioners who practice agritourism at their property, but unfortunately we are at the just beginning stages of our harvest and they were unable to be here today. But I thought it was important to you to hear from those who participate in agritourism, but we'll have another day for that opportunity. We do also question the ATC and who they actually represent. Our organization represents 500 members, as the Farm Bureau represents 2,000 members, and Cabo has gotten almost 2,000 hits on their site. So I think there's a question of who are we really talking about? Who's the public that we're serving here? There are definitely two schools of thought. The first school is presented by ATC, Death by 1,000 Cuts, with the perception that agritourism will be the death knell to agriculture. The other school of thought is that agritourism is another tool in the toolbox for agriculturalists to continue to stay viable. And I think if we turn to an accredited school, UC Davis, we'll find, and I have copies of this information for you and several of us for the public, UC Davis has been studying this issue for almost 12 years now. They started in 1997 with workshops around the state. They actually came to San Luis Obispo in 2003 and met with farmers and ranchers and encouraged them to look at agritourism options on their properties as a way of blending their farming practices and be economically viable and working with the communities. Also in this information I'll provide to you are what motivates a farmer or rancher to participate in an agritourism opportunity. First is, yes, it's increased profitability to keep them economically viable. But it also, as their motivators, is enjoying working with people, outreach to the community, and educating visitors. Included in the list of acceptable practices of agritourism, the #1 special event, guess what, is weddings. So there are a lot of non-directly related agricultural activities that feed into a viable agritourism opportunity. Weddings are #1, down from there, camping, RV camping, cultural festivals, and youth camps. So it's important to note that agritourism is very important. I submitted a letter with my detailed analysis of the ATC, their comments, and I appreciate you taking a look at that. But I want to say this process, your commission acted on July 30th to move all of this forward to the Board of Supervisors. And in keeping with that directive, I think it is time that the board evaluate all of these issues on a comprehensive level. You've heard from other speakers that they are clearly intertwined. So I encourage you to share with the Board of Supervisors in your resolution that the existing ag policies are sufficient. They are, Ag Policy 6 does clearly say that it is for permanent type activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pedrogi. Daniela Sapriel, followed by Eric Greening, and Elizabeth Rolfe is on deck.
Thank you. I want to thank the Commission for doing this, and I absolutely agree that you guys have been working unbelievably hard this year. And I really appreciated coming also to the Tuesday meeting and seeing the board and the Planning Commission work together and getting a little bit of an overview of the interrelationship between the Commission, the board, and the Planning Department. And I also really appreciated hearing Mr. Hoag's introduction. And yes, in our letter, we did ask that this be deferred or sent back to the board, and we may not be using the exact correct word. We called it an appeal because that's what the ATC called it. And what we really want to talk about, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot to say that I was Daniela Sapriel and I live in Templeton. I'm so sorry. And I own a bed and breakfast in Templeton, and I'm a member of the Central Coast Wedding Professionals, and I'm also a member of Cabo. But I'm really here to speak for myself today. And so we do appreciate that there is this interrelated process. Our concern is that we're not really sure that the ATC appreciates the different components of the process. And though we've now been told that, well, this isn't really an appeal, it's really a request for an interpretation, and all we're really asking is the system really working and people aren't being, treated differently, I don't think there's a single person in this room, well, maybe except for one or two, who wouldn't read the documents that the ATC filed in support of this, whatever you want to call it, and wouldn't say that what they're really asking is exactly what they asked on July 30th, is let's find some way to get rid of weddings and events on ag land. And this is a significant policy. We understand that they have a philosophical policy that has to do with eliminating events from ag land. And we're happy to have that policy discussion. But this trying to reinterpret this and just do this and let's just do this, and we're really not trying to do that. That's why our concern here is for the legitimacy of whatever decision comes out of this process. That I know you and the board and the planning department and the ag department and everybody else wants whatever decision to come out to have legitimacy. And my understanding of that is that all of us, whether we agree with the ultimate decision or not, will say, well, you know what? We got heard, we had our philosophy and our policy heard, and they had theirs, and whoever makes the final policy decision, then we can live with that because we elected them, and they made the decision. But please, remember that all of these issues are interrelated and will affect all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sapriel.
Oh, and I do have a dictionary with me in case anybody really wants to look up secondary.
Eric Greening is our next speaker, followed by Elizabeth Rolfe, and Susan Harvey is on deck.
Thank you. I am Eric Greening, and I can certainly see this issue from multiple perspectives. I'm a strong environmentalist. I'm also a member of a performing arts group that values our historical and rural settings for doing historic music of early California. We rarely perform in agriculturally zoned land, however, but when we do, it's not inappropriate to share dances of the ranchos of early Mexican California in a ranch environment that ties to the agricultural history. As I understand it, what the Ag Tourism Coalition is asking for is not for an immediate hard and fast ruling on what is what. They are asking, and it said this in their bullet point, they agree with the need for the interpretation to go through a public process. And as I understand it, they're asking you to kick off that public process. It won't end here. And so I agree with them in that. I think all views need to be heard. Obviously, the balancing act is that the atmosphere of our production agricultural lands is special, and it lends itself to certain types of events if they are appropriately scaled. The danger is losing that atmosphere if the events grow to a scale or frequency that essentially changes the fundamental use of the land. And let's be honest, temporary actually means recurring. We're not talking about something that happens once and never again. We're talking about recurrence, rates of recurrence. But perhaps my own recognition of or fear on what could happen comes from growing up in Orange County. Orange County was named for the orange groves that used to be between every community. Some of those orange groves were bulldozed for a place called Disneyland. You're not going to find an orange grove within 10 miles of Disneyland now. Obviously, that was a huge change. A more subtle change down the road was a place called Knott's Berry Farm. It could be argued that that was ag-related at first. There was actually a producing farm in the early days of visitor-serving uses. You could see chickens, you could buy jams canned from the berries grown on site. But bit by bit, it transformed until you cannot find anything resembling a farm not only on the premises, but within 10 miles of it. So I'm very well aware of how things can run away if there isn't some kind of agreement set as to what is actual appropriate scale. And I would hope a beginning point that we might find some middle ground is to talk about numbers of vehicles rather than numbers of people. That's where a lot of the impact is. But hopefully you will kick off a place where we can have that conversation. Thank you.